and time. They hit it well. As two gunmen seize a Colorado high school, a horrified mother waits outside.
I was one of the people up there saying, blow these shooters away. Please, why haven't you cops gone in there and blown these guys away? I don't care who they are. Blow them away. They're killing our children.
Then, the gunmen turn out to be boys she knew, who spent time at her house, friends of her daughter.
These kids hid it from everybody. They hid it well.
Seasons of doubt. For the American farmer, hard times in the land of plenty.
We lost money, big time. We lost $500,000 that will have to be refinanced and spread out over 10 years, 12-year period, trying to pay it back.
The first casualty. In the battle for the hearts and minds of Serbs, the path to victory is paved with propaganda.
The media's always been the most important way that Milosevic has kept power in Serbia.
On TV Belgrade, news isn't news until Slobodan Milosevic says so. CNN and Time with Jeff Greenfield and Bernard Shaw. CNN and Time, two of the world's leading news organizations.
Good evening and welcome to Newsstand. There is unhappily only one place to begin tonight, but trying to explain why a high school in Littleton, Colorado became a killing ground may just be an exercise in futility. So we're not going to round up the usual suspects or the usual arguments. Instead, we want to take you through the story that begins years ago with two pretty normal kids who on Tuesday morning walked into their high school and set off a massacre unparalleled in United States history.
18-year-old Eric Harris and 17-year-old Dylan Klebold have been described as outcasts, even losers. But what is emerging from friends and acquaintances is a sketch of two boys full of potential and contradictions. For all the torrent of words you've read and heard, you may well hear details you have not heard before, from voices you have not heard before. Here's Art Harris.
There was this, ton of kids covered in blood.
When she heard police sirens, Sherry Higgins raced to her children's high school.
They were in all black clothing, they had shotguns and rifles, and they were just shooting anybody.
A mother who arrived on the scene even before paramedics. As a policeman carried out the first wounded students.
He opens up the back door to the squad car, and there's a couple of kids that are covered in blood.
She stripped off her blouse to use as a tourniquet.
Every 5-10 minutes, there was another carload of a bunch of bloody bodies.
It appears that they have established a very, very tight perimeter around the school.
I was one of the people up there saying, blow these shooters away. Please, why haven't you cops gone in there and blown these guys away? I don't care who they are. Blow them away. They're killing our children.
Then the gunman turned out to be two boys she knew.
The first two wounded that came out identified them.
Friends of her daughter. Fringe members of an outcast group called the Trenchcoat Mafia, who often met at her house.
They hang out here quite a bit. They're all good kids.
The two killers, Columbine High School seniors Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris.
Eric had been over here. He seemed very sweet. Played Nintendo, laughed, had a good time, joked, drank soda pop, ate potato chips, had hot dogs. All-round good kid.
Her daughter, one of the Trenchcoat Mafia, was in the school cafeteria line when the attack began. Her son, Chris, was also in the crossfire.
My friend Sean, I saw him get shot, and he went down to the ground. I saw my friend Lance get shot. He went down to the ground. I saw my friend Dan get shot.
When Higgins found her children safe at home, she told them who the gunmen were.
They didn't seem like the killer type. Then when I heard it was them, I was kind of shocked, because they had been in my house.
These kids hid it from everybody. They hid it well.
Eric Harris, the son of an Air Force pilot, grew up in a military family that moved around. When Eric was 8, his father, Wayne, was stationed at Wordsworth Air Force Base in Michigan. Eric competed in community fishing contests. One former classmate remembers him as a normal, fun-loving kid, but shy. Pastor Bill Stone lived across the street.
He was quiet. I understand he was quite interested in computers.
He recalls how Eric and his older brother, Kevin, played basketball with their father, a youth sports coach.
It just seemed a very close-knit family. I watched Wayne put in a basketball backdrop, and he would get out and play with his boys. They just had a good time playing together.
Next, the Harris family was transferred to Plattsburgh, New York, where Eric entered 5th grade. Little League coach Brian Lapierre says Eric's father wanted his son to play baseball so he could make friends. Eric liked baseball, but another coach remembers something unusual. When he was up to bat, he wouldn't swing at the ball. Then, in 1993, Wayne Harris retired from the Air Force, took a job at a flight training school, and moved his family to Littleton, Colorado. A former Little League teammate says Eric didn't want to leave his friends in New York. Once again, Eric was the new kid in school.
He wasn't really accepted just because he was a new student, like every other new student. And I don't think he really attempted to really get accepted.
In Littleton, Eric met Dylan Klebold, the son of a geophysicist and a special education counselor. The two boys had a lot in common. They were quiet, had older brothers, and loved computers. Like Eric, Dylan had played in Little League.
If he didn't pitch, he wouldn't play. He had to pitch or he didn't want to play. And so then he'd sit there on the bench and he wouldn't talk to anybody and he wouldn't do anything.
Welcome. You've got mail.
Nick Baumgart grew up with Dylan Klebold.
Dylan I went to school with from the time I was about 2nd grade through, actually about 3rd grade through 5th grade. I kind of knew him there, as well as outside of school. He was in my Cub Scout troop. And then I picked up again with him in 7th and 8th grade. He was a good kid back then, you know. He's a quiet kid, intelligent. Always respectful to the teachers. He was never had any problems, you know. And just kind of quiet and shy, just really smart. The only thing I could ever say bad about him was just that maybe he was just a little insecure that, you know, he was a follower sometimes. But other than that, you know, he was a really good person. I knew Dylan when we entered 7th grade. So Eric was in our algebra class. That's really how Dylan and I both got acquainted with him. Eric was a pretty good kid. He was smart. He was a little different than Dylan and I. He was maybe a little bit more kind of easily agitated, if you will. He harbored grudges, I guess is the worst I could say about him. Dylan was kind of a follower. And so wherever Eric was, Dylan was sure not to be too far behind. He and Dylan, nearing the end of 7th and 8th grade, more and more started playing games like, you know, certain games that are called first-person shooters. They really kind of got obsessed. It was kind of where they'd come home after school and start playing then and wouldn't stop till they went to sleep, you know. And eventually got involved with, you know, competing over the internet or a modem and playing against each other. So that was really when I started to drift away from them, too.
By the time Eric and Dylan entered high school, both seemed to have become loners.
There definitely were groups, cliques, you know, and Eric and Dylan kind of didn't fit into any of them. They kind of tried to latch on with the Trenchcoat Mafia, but they were just kind of trapped in kind of a middle situation where they really weren't in any sort of group.
Eric seemed especially distant. He began calling himself Reb.
He wouldn't talk to anybody at all, really. I mean, you'd even walk in the halls and, you know, even if you'd say hi to him or nothing, he wouldn't really say anything.
Freshman year, Eric met Tiffany Teifer in German class and took her to homecoming. She says it was their only date. When she refused to go out with him again, she says Eric staged a suicide prank, sprawling on the ground, fake blood splashed all over him. In Tiffany's yearbook, Eric later wrote in German, "Ich bin Gott," I am God. By their junior year, Eric and Dylan seemed to be changing for the worse. They broke into a car and were sentenced to a year's community service. The parents of a classmate also filed a police complaint against Eric for threatening their son and breaking the windshield of his car. Towards the end of the 1998 school year at Columbine High, one of the boys filled a diary with thoughts of hate and violence. Soon, both boys changed their appearance. Dylan Klebold no longer looked like his junior yearbook picture.
This year he had long blonde hair and he had a big goatee, and he looked a lot different than he did in this picture.
By senior year, Dylan and Eric were wearing the unofficial uniform of the Trenchcoat Mafia, all black or military fatigue, and at times long coats reminiscent of gunslingers or the Gestapo. In fact, friends say both boys were enthralled with Hitler and the Third Reich. Some players on Columbine's winning football team saw the Trenchcoat Mafia as losers.
The jocks, football players, whatever, they would push him up against the locker, call him fags. They were treated really bad.
Other players say they only ridiculed the way the Mafia dressed.
I think that you know, they kept their distance away from others and felt that they were almost different than all the rest of the kids in the school.
I think that they kind of felt jealous because we got more attention than they did, even though they tried to stand out more than we did.
Something about them seemed disturbing.
People had always said, you know, when things were going wrong in Arkansas and Oregon with the shootings, kids had said, if that were to happen, those would be the kids at our school that would do it.
This past fall, for a class project, Eric and Dylan made a video. They cast students as gunmen in long coats, shooting athletes in the school hallway. Sherry Higgins says she was told it was a spoof.
It was more or less a bang, bang, Dick Tracy type thing that they were trying to put together.
And yet, looking back, it seemed to be
a clue,
a roadmap.
You bet.
On a computer website thought to belong to Eric Harris, there was a collection of lyrics from a German industrial rock band. Apocalypse Now, Walls of Flame, Billowing Smoke, Who's to Blame? In February of this year, when Eric and Dylan finished their community service for the car break-in, a juvenile officer wrote in a report, Eric is a very bright young man who is likely to succeed in life. And Dylan is a bright young man who has a great deal of potential, but he needs to understand hard work is part of it. On Friday night, 4 days before the high school shooting, both boys worked their jobs at Blackjack Pizza. Saturday night was prom night. Dylan, to the surprise of some, brought a date. Then on Sunday, Dylan's used BMW was parked outside the Harris's home for hours. Neighbors began to hear loud noises coming from behind the closed door of the family garage.
And I just noticed that there were some power saws being run, it sounded like, and glass breaking.
The question, where were Eric's parents?
I know they were there a part of the weekend, and I know they weren't there a part of the weekend. I don't remember which parts.
Tuesday, April 20th, Hitler's birthday. Eric and Dylan skipped school. As lunch hour began, Brooks Brown saw Eric Harris in the school parking lot.
And I asked him, like, why, like he was acting strange, and he said, Brooks, I like you. I like you now. Go home and get out of here. And so I took off, because he's not one to be toyed with.
Moments later, Brown heard the gunfire that left a dozen schoolmates and a teacher dead. Nick Baumgart escaped, only to learn his prom date, Rachel Scott, was among the victims. He says in the midst of the chaos, he had a thought.
Just hearing the booms in the background as you're running, and, you know, loud booms, not like gunshots, but huge. And I just kind of knew it was Eric.
And he found his childhood friend, Dylan Klebold, had followed Eric Harris to the end.
There's no way to explain it. The whole thing is so illogical. There's nothing you can do to explain something like this.
When we return, NATO celebrates a milestone and agonizes over war.
CNN and Time.
Last time you made money in your sleep, you believed in the tooth fairy. But now, check into any Red Roof Inn with our coupon from USA Today and get $5 cash back. Plus, you get to keep all your teeth. Ooh, beauties. Call 1-800-THE-ROOF and save money like you mean it.
Lately, we at Lockheed Martin have been lucky enough to work on some very exciting projects. the most advanced automated fingerprint identification system in the world. Oh, and let's not forget the missions to Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn.
For those of you who actually have a life outside of gardening, there's Garden.com. With tons of plants, expert advice, and home delivery, we can help anyone have a great garden. Now you don't need a green thumb, just an index finger.
Well, good morning. Did you realize the American Cancer Society says foods like Florida orange juice may help in the fight against cancer?
Really?
Yes. Has a sandwich ever lied to you? Now go seize the day.
100% pure Florida orange juice. Are you drinking enough?
At 25, I wanted to make vice president. At 35, I wanted to make my first million. At 45, I wanted to make enough to buy the company. Now all I want is to make it around this track 0.2 of a second faster.
At Lincoln Financial Group, we provide clear, understandable, customized solutions to help you manage, protect, and enjoy the work of a lifetime. Lincoln Financial Group, clear solutions in a complex world.
Coming up on Newsstand, CNN and Time. High risk.
It's about $80 an acre.
Low return.
This farming is constant pressure. Never know what the market's going to do, what the weather's going to do, what creditors are going to do, employees.
American farmers putting everything on the line to stay just one step ahead of failure. Also ahead, Slobodan Milosevic's media machine.
The most obvious falsehood right now, driven home by the Serbian media, is that the Yugoslav forces are not responsible for the massive expulsions, violence, and killings in Kosovo.
In a war of words, facts can often be few and far between. As CNN and Time continues. Newsstand, CNN and Time is moving to a new time slot. Beginning next week, join Jeff Greenfield and Bernard Shaw at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Now that we have a plan.
What can we afford?
If I retire at, say, 65. Sorry.
No, 55.
That's all right.
Oh, 62.
Now, if Kevin goes Ivy League, let's go to junior college.
Honey, if he gets into an Ivy League, he's going Ivy League.
You're right.
Okay.
I don't know.
Let's see it again. And buying the vineyard in Tuscany.
Ooh.
Vacation in Tuscany.
Yeah. That's nice.
I like that.
No matter what you want to achieve, we can help. Ask Merrill Lynch.
Right, give me a good exit and a clean arch. Go! Come on, pay attention. Right, heads up at 4,500 feet. Look, reach, pull, go! Come on, you can do it! How many times have you done this? None! But I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
No matter where people figure in your company's future, we'll have the furniture that configures to your people. Hayworth, furniture for what's next.
Qantas has some of the best food in the sky. It's all as fresh as humanly possible. Oh, and they really know how to look after a vegetarian.
Ever since the breakup of the Soviet Union a decade ago, NATO has been struggling to answer one key question. Is it simply a holdover from the Cold War, or is it an essential international alliance for the next century? Until a few weeks ago, almost no one could have imagined that the answer to that question might rest on the outcome of a violent conflict in the Balkans. But this past week, as NATO staged its long-planned 50th anniversary summit in Washington, the mood of that event turned from a celebration to a council of war. That's the story that begins tonight's dispatches.
What we're seeing here in Washington this weekend is the tippity-top of each country's political leadership. You're seeing presidents, prime ministers, foreign ministers, defense ministers.
Peace Alliance has always sought to promote peace.
Everybody was unanimous. All 19 of them said the air war is the way to go. But underneath all of that, there are dissents and dissension.
What's interesting is that in the meeting, the closed meeting, there's lots of unity and agreement. But then you go to the news conferences of the separate delegations, and they have their own constituencies they have to worry about.
And I and my staff stand ready now to talk to NATO.
You go to the British one, and they're very bullish, and they want ground troops.
It's necessary to apply also political means.
And you go to the Greek one, and they're saying, wow, we don't think this air campaign is working, and we're sort of against it, because the public in Greece hates it. The Italians, they're against bombing Serb TV. The NATO air campaign is now getting a little bit personal towards Milosevic. On Friday, NATO missiles slammed into his jewel in the crown of his propaganda machine, Belgrade Television.
After the bombing of the studio complex, people began to go outside the station in very large numbers and light candles and place flowers. Some people actually in tears in front of the TV station. Those same people who were on the streets during pro-democracy demonstrations 2 years ago, denouncing Serbian TV as the factory of lies, were out on the streets demonstrating against its destruction by NATO. In fact, the Yugoslav authorities were saying that the NATO attack destroyed in Milosevic's bedroom, their living room, and their dining room. I heard a story from a government source here that Mira Markovic, who's the wife of the president, went to the damaged building very soon afterwards in the daylight hours because it was said she'd gone back to get some clothes, but nothing was left of her wardrobe.
Plainly for Milosevic, the safest place for him to be is in the presidential palace. We have said we are not going to bomb that because there's a Rembrandt there.
We're in Kosovo because we want to replace ethnic cleansing with tolerance and decency.
I've also been talking on the telephone with people who work for humanitarian groups, and they find it kind of ironic that NATO is not organizing any kind of an air food drop. But NATO says, well, we can't because we would lose pilots in the process. At some point, these humanitarian groups say, wouldn't it be worth losing a few pilots if you could save hundreds of thousands of lives?
The war has entered the slogging phase. You see them entering the slogging phase of the war by the fact that the Pentagon did not brief this weekend. When you call certain people at the Pentagon at 8 o'clock at night, they're not there anymore. They've gone home. There are fewer pizzas being delivered to the Pentagon at night these days. You get a picture that they're into a rhythm of war now that is more sustainable. They know they're running a marathon. They are not sprinting anymore.
A reminder, CNN's reporting from Yugoslavia, like that of other news organizations, is subject to certain restrictions set by Yugoslav authorities. Later in our broadcast, why the most powerful weapon of Slobodan Milosevic may be the media.
Next, unpredictable weather, depressed markets, and anxious creditors. Can the American family farmer survive?
We destroyed 2,000 acres of cotton. We lost $500,000. We're at the point where we've got to make a good crop.
When CNN in Time continues.
Introducing the new intercontinental business class from Iberia Airlines. It has to be seen to be believed. Iberia Airlines, the best-kept secret of European travel.
We mill wheat into flour, process and refine oilseeds in Mexico, produce sweeteners from corn in the U.S., Brazil, and Europe.
You see this?
And operate 19 meat processing facilities in North America.
Yep. And look what they did with it.
Where these days, there's some good news for everyone. Cargill. It's not just what we do, it's how we do it.
Possibility 1, he flattens your car. Your Hartford auto policy covers the damage. Possibility 2, he flattens your hot dog stand. Your Hartford small business insurance helps you rebuild. Possibility 3, he flattens your great Aunt Edna. Might we suggest investing your inheritance in one of our top-selling annuities? Whatever life brings you, bring it on.
Tuesday on People Profiles. Jim Henson was the visionary who revolutionized children's television. Now step inside his wild and wonderful world. Tuesday on CNN.
Docking in 3, 2, 1. Contact. Board cutoff. Thompson, Damerow, what is your status, please? Copy that. Thompson, Damerow, Ford are now 1. Congratulations.
Do you know how to escape a fire? Well, would you believe you could learn the answer from a baby?
If you get caught in a fire, here's what you should know. Get down on your knees and you remember, please, to keep your body low. You just got to fall and fall. That's right. And you get out of the fire. Fall and fall.
Early Edition with Carol Lynn and Leon Harris. Weekdays on CNN.
There was a time not too long ago when newspapers, magazines, and politicians called the American family farmer the backbone of the nation. But as this century ends, the number of farms in the United States is at its lowest level since before the Civil War. Urban sprawl, the vagaries of the market, and the weather are all blamed for the current plight of many farmers. And with that in mind, tonight we begin an unusual series that looks at the state of farming in the U.S. We'll follow the Mobley family, Georgia farmers struggling with adversity.
We're going to burn this field up.
Cleve Mobley is setting his fields on fire. Working with his cousin George, Mobley is clearing land to get ready for planting in the spring. It's part of what he has to do in winter, if he is to have a good harvest in 1999.
We're going to burn this off so we can get in here and work this land up so we can have a crop in here next year.
1998 was a disastrous year for Mobley and other farmers in Burke County, Georgia, just south of Augusta. Too much rain at first, not enough later.
We're at the point where we've got to make a good crop. We can't have, if we have another bad crop, then we'll probably lose 10% of the farmers here this year in our area, and next year, if we have another disaster, it'll be 30 or 40% going out of business.
Some crops were so poor and prices for them so low at market, Mobley plowed them under rather than harvest them.
We destroyed 2,000 acres of cotton. We didn't harvest, we just shredded it. About 200 acres of corn destroyed and about 100 acres of peanuts we didn't harvest. We lost money, big time. We lost $500,000 that will have to be refinanced and spread out over a 10-year, 12-year period trying to pay it back. What we need to do is probably figure that irrigated at about $80 an acre.
Early in the year, Mobley is more business executive than field worker. He is trying to arrange credit for the upcoming season. This money would be the lifeblood to keep his farm going until harvest.
Yeah.
All farmers are familiar with the term operating loan.
I'm attempting to borrow $950,000 almost $1 million, to operate a 3,500-acre farm, depending totally on the weather to be able to pay that money back, the weather and my marketing ability. Hello?
Mobley has a two-tiered plan. A $500,000 loan from a local lender.
I came up with 1445 irrigated land, so let's see what that comes to.
Another $500,000 from the federal government in the form of a low-interest loan.
For the FHA, which is now FSA loan package, you got all these forms that has to be filled out, which is a major undertaking. And you got to get all your yields and your production records from the past 5 years.
Sam Baker is a farm loan manager for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Louisville, Georgia.
The farm economy is extremely tight with the commodity prices, in addition to the drought conditions that we've had in this area. Then things are tight in agriculture at this time.
So tight, Burke County farmers are eligible for disaster aid loans.
All right, what's next?
Baker is inspecting equipment Mobley is putting up as security for the loan. Peanut inverters, peanut harvesters, cotton planters, sprayers, bladers, finishers, harrowers.
When it comes down to it, if it's tough enough, they'll have you put every acre of land you have, your house, your cars, your trucks, everything.
Mobley did not have to put up his car or his house, but he did put up 150% of the loan value as collateral.
It makes you nervous when you sign a $500,000 loan. It makes anybody nervous. But I'm confident that I'm a good enough producer that I can produce the crop to easily pay back the loan with some cooperation from the weather.
When crops aren't good, Burke County suffers. Vacant storefronts and abandoned buildings in Waynesboro, the county seat, are evidence of that. A once thriving grain storage facility, now deserted. Business is so slow, there's more inventory than usual on the lot at Blanchard Equipment. At one time, $10 million worth. Philip Blanchard is one of the largest farm equipment dealers in the state.
I've been in this business for 25 years, and I've never seen it so scary. Repossessions are at an all-time high. The credit companies are calling us every week to pick up equipment from farmers almost on a weekly basis. And it's not getting any better. It's getting worse.
Burke County, like other farm communities across the country, is feeling the effects of high production costs and low crop prices. Cropland and cultivation in the county has declined by 40% since the early 80s. Many landowners are planting pine trees instead of growing crops. Even though the payday won't come for 20 years, the risk is lower.
When it's farming, it's constant pressure. Always pressure. I mean, it's a tough business. People don't realize what we really do go through trying to make this work.
In 1980, Cleve Mobley was a freshman at the University of Georgia, studying agricultural economics.
I was in school, and I found out that my uncle he farmed with my father, and he passed away. He was 39 years old and had a heart attack and died. And so I left school and came back and started helping on the farm.
It wasn't enough help. His father, Niece Mobley, went bankrupt, lost his farm. He died of a heart attack last year.
My father was the only one out of the family to make it to 60 years old out of 10 brothers that he had. And he's the only one to make it to 60, and there's only 2 left, and they're in their late 50s.
Mobley is 38 now. He started farming on his own in 1986 with borrowed money. Mindful of his father's failure, he works day and night to succeed.
Probably won't be as good a cotton as that, I'm sure, because that was irrigated. That was good cotton right there.
At lunch at Mobley's cafeteria, his aunt runs the place. He does a deal with a cotton marketer.
Pleasure to meet you. Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Runs into one of his landlords.
Just took care of the irrigation a minute ago.
Like most other Burke County farmers, he rents most of his land. The agreement with the Vines is one of 14 leases he negotiated this year.
You've got 2 lists of stuff to do.
Well, I'm glad he wrote it down.
I pretend to deal with it good. I feel like I'm doing a good job of dealing with it, but I'm sure there's sometimes I get overbearing and hard to live with at home, and I'm sure we all of us farmers go through that, but it's part of life. We got to deal with it.
His wife of 11 years, Marlette, helps manage the farm, putting in full days at the office.
So I'm finished with that. We don't have to worry about that no more.
I just got to get that.
Are you supposed to sell one?
She says she longs for a normal family life, where she and their 2 boys see Cleve more often.
Did I want that kind of lifestyle? No. Did I know what I was getting into? No. But I adjusted. We started off where we were inseparable, and I guess that's what I fell in love with. Mother Farms. I'm telling you, I fell in love with you.
Marlette is from Augusta, a city girl by Burke County standards.
I've never seen a cotton plant. He taught me all about cotton, soybeans, corn. We'd go out there looking for worms.
They dated for 9 months and married on New Year's Eve in 1987.
He just got a great personality. He could go out there and talk to that stop sign. That stop sign would love him. He'd send me flowers. He'd be calling me all the time. He'd come and take me out for lunch. What happened to them good old days? He'd come get me. We'd ride around the fields. We used to have the best time. That's what happens to the marriages. They get old and stale.
I don't know if she really liked this business as much now since she's having to work in it. She used to enjoy it a lot more when she was able to ride around with me and spend more time with me, more of our free time together, but we've gotten to the point now where we've got so much to do, it's hard to keep up.
And you know what I can try to tell him? I'm this little cotton seed, and when you put that cotton seed in the ground and you don't give it no water and no fertilizer, what happens? It don't do nothing. And that's what I feel like sometimes. I've got to have some water and I've got to have some fertilizer to grow. So
there's not as much family time as I'd like to have, and I'm guilty of that, and that's something I need to work on.
That's what Cleve tells me I need. A husband that gets off at 5 and they can share their day together or do whatever, and Saturdays they don't have to work and go play in the yard or do whatever. That would be wonderful. He wouldn't be happy.
I don't foresee it happening.
I want him to be happy. Whatever it takes. I still look at him as being my best friend.
11 years, we're still hanging in there. It's tough, though. But when that cotton crop comes out of the ground, you got to be there. The more acres you plant of it, and the more you got to just get involved with it. I mean, you got to walk in the fields, watch it, check it every day. I mean, it's like it has to become almost part of the family. Literally speaking, you have to tend to it like you do part of your family. If you don't, because it'll just go away. It'll be gone.
The Mobley sons, Dustin and Trey, say they want to be farmers when they grow up. They also notice Dad's not around much.
He wakes up about after me and Dustin about 7:30, and then leaves at like 8 o'clock, and then comes back at like 9:30.
Do you get to see him very much?
He'll sometimes come by and pick us up and let us go with him sometimes. Him and Mama always work in the office. So they get in arguments sometimes.
You see that now? My boys, if they want to farm, I want them to have the opportunity. And that's one thing I'm working hard for, too, is to try to have an opportunity for them to start off a little bit easier than I did.
Tension within the family. Tension about the upcoming season. Weeks before the planting season, the disaster loan still hasn't come through.
Farmers, we don't know anything else. We just keep putting one foot in front of the other and hoping we can figure out a way to stay in business.
We'll continue to chronicle the Mobley family, following them through the planting season into the fall harvest. And when we come back, the reason experts say the truth was a casualty in Yugoslavia long before the first bombs fell.
While
While Johnny Kim was getting ready for the first customers of the day, someone else was looking at larger space for his growing business. At 3 o'clock, while the Curtis family was watching their daughter's soccer game, someone else was walking a prospective tenant through one of their apartment buildings. And while Carmen Delabar was preparing for a fashion show, someone else met with an appraiser about her investment property. You've got a life. We let you live it. We're realtors. Real estate is our life.
I see we're getting quite a jump on this.
Has just made like a sort of a recent move in the last 3 minutes.
How's your day going? How are the pharmaceutical stocks doing?
First thing on the docket is to get as much information as I can.
Yeah, let me check it.
For average daily volume being 27,000, so it looks like we're on track. So I can provide our clients with the best detailed information possible.
We're going to help them with all the research and all the information that we have here.
There's some regulatory legislation going to have adverse effect on their stock.
Chart looks good.
Checking with you next week.
Sounds great. Nice talking to you. Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend, too.
Some of today's most advanced life-saving technologies were initiated here in the Chrysler and Plymouth minivans. The first minivan with an airbag. The first with integrated child seats. The first with dynamic side impact protection. The most minivan safety firsts. Chrysler, we made the minivan what it is today. Now get $1,000 cash allowance or 1.9% APR on any Chrysler minivan.
Next on Newsstand, CNN and Time. The View from Belgrade.
The impact of the media has been directly to fuel violence, bloodshed, and war.
Propaganda as the key to Slobodan Milosevic's power. When CNN and Time continues.
I'm Steve Kirby. These are my mountains. I test emissions for Ford Motor Company. We're up here in the Rockies testing Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury sport utility vehicles. We're really concerned about the environment. Every SUV we sell this year is going to be low emissions. These vehicles average 35% less smog-forming emissions than the government requires. 35%. That's really amazing. The government doesn't make us do this. We're doing this for my mountains. Better ideas driven by you.
Would you like some roast beef?
Yeah, and don't be stingy.
Well, I'll have the Swedish meatballs. Oh, by the way, you look simply radiant. You two make a perfect couple.
Thank you.
Hey, it's all foam. How do you plan on paying for your wedding? Conseco's wide range of financial solutions can help. Conseco, step up.
I love my new Toro personal pace self-propel mower so much, I'm letting my neighbors try it.
Wow, so simple to control. This is unbelievable.
He loves it.
It moves at whatever speed I'm walking, and it's easy backing up, too.
She's hooked.
No speeds to adjust. I want one.
I think they're impressed.
The revolutionary Toro Personal Pace Self-Propel Mower. It's a whole new way to mow. Other innovative Toro products are proudly used at Disney's Wide World of Sports complex.
She's managing her time, right down to the dime, with Sprint. Because now it's just a dime a minute on calling card calls, on calls to your Sprint 800 number, and all calls from home. Call 1-8775-CONTACT and switch to Sprint. You can't control everything, but you can make the most of your time. Isn't that the point of contact? Switch now for a dime every time. Call toll-free 1-8775-CONTACT.
On the very day that NATO opened its 50th anniversary summit, Allied forces struck at the heart of the power structure of Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic. The target was not a military headquarters. It was not a tank base. It was a television station. The attack, which resulted in several civilian casualties, demonstrates that NATO was willing to take huge political risks in order to erase the images that have dominated Serbian media. Here's David Lewis now with a look at what the Serbs have seen of this conflict and why it matters so much to Milosevic.
Hour after hour, day after day, night after night. This is what is aired on Serbian television. This is what NATO did to its headquarters.
RTS is not media. It's full of government employees who are paid to produce propaganda and lies.
Since the NATO bombing of Yugoslavia began, Slobodan Milosevic's media machinery had been working overtime.
Until the South Industrial Zone was again targeted by NATO aggressors.
The content in the images may have surprised Western viewers who were getting their first look. But it is typical, experts say, of Serbian TV.
Milosevic's manipulation of the media over time has sometimes been very subtle, sometimes has been, to outside eyes, very clumsy. The one thing that we can say for sure is that since the conflict began, there is very little subtlety involved.
James Gow is a visiting scholar at the Woodrow Wilson International Center. He has researched Yugoslavia's media.
We've now moved into a phase where explicitly Serbian television and Serbian newspapers have been translating NATO as the Nazi American terrorist organization.
But what it's done is to kind of work on Serbian historical traditions and ideas about themselves as the small country always facing the bully boy.
Journalist Tim Judah has covered the Balkans for more than a decade.
They've been showing the old partisan films on the sort of heroic resistance during the Second World War. So the link was made in people's minds that, you know, here come the new Nazis, NATO are the new Nazis. And so the media is reminding people of this and saying, well, this is our fate, here we go again, we're right, and we're against the whole world, but we will win in the end.
Milosevic won support by controlling the medium and the message from the very beginning of his rise to power. In a carefully staged incident, Milosevic, then a little-known Communist Party official, cast himself in the role of Serb savior. Confronted by a group of angry Serbs who said they were being beaten by ethnic Albanians, Milosevic said, "No one will beat you again."
Milosevic had friends in the state television, and it was this moment that many people say made him, because this key event was shown over and over again.
That message sent electric waves through the Serbian political culture. From that point onwards, he was able to fan these flames of nationalism.
But what aired on the evening news was not the full story. Truth, critics say, was the first casualty of Milosevic's rule. According to James Gow, the entire incident in Kosovo was a setup.
He'd organized two things. One was a set of local activists who were going to stone the police to provoke an incident, and the second was preparation for media reporting on Serbian state television of his visit.
Yugoslavia I Serbia neće dati Kosovo.
After that incident, Milosevic rose through the Communist Party ranks. 2 years later, he was elected president of Serbia.
Drugarice I drugovi.
One of his earliest actions was to put his own loyalists in charge of state-owned TV. Soon, nearly 1,000 employees were replaced, and the editorial point of view became fixed. The Serbian public protested until tanks rolled in to central Belgrade.
Današnja demokratija.
Milosevic did allow a handful of independent news outlets to operate, but he limited the reach of radio and TV signals, kept newsprint prices so high that the papers were often too expensive.
Milosevic could always afford to allow a degree of genuinely independent media activity because very few people would turn to it.
For an estimated 80% of the Serbian people, the only source of news was the state's TV Belgrade.
TV is a major pillar of his power.
Columnist Stoyan Cerovic founded one of the first weekly news magazines in Serbia. Today, he is reluctant to speak out. This interview was done 2 years ago.
I would say that you might describe Milosevic regime as a TV dictatorship.
Television became a key tool as Yugoslavia broke apart in the 1990s. And the Milosevic regime prepared for war in Croatia and Bosnia.
If anybody asks why Serbs supported the war or how much they really supported the war, the best response to that question is just watch Belgrade TV news.
The hatred and the anger and the willingness to proceed with such a war had to be created.
Anthony Borden is the executive director of the Institute for War and Peace Reporting, which has monitored the role of Serbian media during Milosevic's rule.
The impact of the media has been directly to fuel violence, bloodshed, and war. The constant message is about the other. You are not my neighbor anymore. You are another kind of person. You are a Croat. You are a Muslim. You are an Albanian. You are another kind of being. You are the enemy.
The media not only made the wars possible, Borden says, but also hid the truth of those wars.
Through very much of the Bosnian War, people in Serbia did not understand or even know about the siege of Sarajevo. The facts were twisted, and it was fully distorted.
In late 1996, Milosevic's successful propaganda machine stumbled for the first time. He voided the results of local elections that had strengthened a growing opposition. People took to the streets in protest. But when they turned to the evening news, they saw for themselves how the facts were manipulated.
They're doing whatever they like. The national TV is saying what they want to say. They don't look on the streets. They don't see these people. This is terrible. This is a nightmare.
State TV became the target of the protesters. Every night during the evening news, people demonstrated in the streets. The independent media told the story. Police forces responded. First with clubs, then by taking the most important independent radio station, B92, off the air.
B92 stopped its broadcasting shortly after 1410, as this was the moment when our frequency officially died.
But the radio broadcast its program over the internet. With the world now focused on the story, Milosevic backed down.
Radio B92 is on the air again.
But in the fall of 1998, as tensions over Kosovo mounted, Milosevic made sure the independent media would be silent.
The subtlety of Milosevic's attacks on the media ended, and he took off all the gloves. Draconian media legislation was implemented last autumn. The main radio station, B92, was shut down. Repression against journalists has increased. One leading editor has been shot. His death sent a very, very sharp and clear message to all journalists within Serbia that they had better pay attention and better stay in line.
Dragi građani,
once again, that left Milosevic in firm control of the message. That, once again, Serbs were the victims.
The most obvious falsehood right now, driven home by the Serbian media, is that the Yugoslav forces are not responsible for the massive expulsions, violence, and killings in Kosovo.
That's Newsstand for tonight. I'm Jeff Greenfield. On Tuesday, People profiles Jim Henson. On Wednesday, Willow Bay and Stephen Frazier bring you CNN and Fortune. On Thursday, Judd Rose joins Willow for CNN and Entertainment Weekly.
Next week, all the Newsstand shows will appear at a new time, 8 p.m. Eastern.
I'm Bernard Shaw, and for everyone at CNN, good night.
To purchase a transcript of this program, please call 1-800-CNN-NEWS. Visit us at cnn.com/newsstand and join Time online at time.com. For more reporting of this kind, read Time magazine this week. It's at your newsstand.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Bell Atlantic, your guide through the wiles of communications.
Last time you made money in your sleep, you believed in the tooth fairy. But now, check into any Red Roof Inn with our coupon from USA Today and get $5 cash back. Plus, you get to keep all your teeth. Ooh, beauties. Call 1-800-THE-ROOF and save money like you mean it.
Perfect partners plot the perfect crime in the new movie Entrapment, starring Sean Connery and Catherine Zeta-Jones. Now the trap is set. Imagine yourself entrapped in luxury. You could win a trip to London to enjoy all the trappings of royalty. Brought to you by Continental Airlines and CNN Sports Illustrated, the thinking fan's choice for sports news 24 hours a day. Look for details in USA Today or displays at participating Bloomingdale's.
We've got a proposition for you.
Entrapment in theaters April 30th.
Tuesday on the next People Profiles, Jim Henson. He was the visionary who revolutionized children's television forever. Now step inside his wild and wonderful world. Next People Profiles, Tuesday, 10/9 Central on CNN. Thursday, as the healing begins in Colorado, a very special program for you and your children. Hear what our kids have to say about violence and death, what it feels like to be an outsider, and what we can do to make our schools safer. Join host Jeff Greenfield, CNN's nationwide team of student reporters, and families from all walks of life for a CNN town meeting, Listening After Littleton, live from America's Heartland. Thursday at 7:30 Eastern on CNN.
Weeknights at 11. It's a fun, fast-paced, and smarter approach to sports news. Join Fred and Vince on Sports Tonight. Weeknights at 11 on CNN.
Sea Ray and Mark Cruiser.
Hi, I'm Bill Trudeau, Trudeau Sea Ray.
And I wish I could take you through a Sea Ray factory so you could see for yourself the advanced technology, the computer design center, the pride the employees take in delivering the quality of boat that keeps you on the water and makes boating enjoyable.
So come on in and see us at Trudeau Sea Ray, your authorized Merc Cruiser dealer.
Do you know how to escape a fire? Well, would you believe you could learn the answer from a baby?
If you get caught in a fire, here's what you should know.